Hello, welcome to Illuminations with Tiina and Fi. I'm Fi.
And I'm Tiina.
Hi, Tiina. And today we're doing the second episode in our series on relationships that serve you. So if you want to get a handle on what Tiina and I have explored around how relationships can serve you, then go and have a look at the last episode. In this episode, Tiina, we're going to kind of explore together, chat about how can we find relationships that serve us. And I think you said something interesting that nudged my head the last time. So, and also what can we do with present relationships that they can actually serve us?
Mm-hmm.
So, there you go.
There you go. Should I kick off?
Do.
Well, I come back to one of my cornerstones of everything, and I think this is what is talked about quite a lot, is figuring out for yourself what a relationship that serves you should be like. Like, what do you want out of your relationships? You know, what do you want them to look like, and what do you want them to feel like? I think that's one of the keys of actually finding them. And also, you know, if there's a relationship that you love being in with a friend or a colleague or a lover, but there's something that's not quite right, and there's a bit of worries coming up, and it's like, okay, so what is working, what isn't working, and being very clear. I think Lisa Nicholson calls it be crystal clear on what you want, because then you can show up and say, hey, you know, been thinking, and this is kind of what I want, and how I would like it to be, how I would like to feel in this relationship. And likewise, if you're looking for new relationships, once you know what you want, then you can start attracting that to yourself. Sometimes, and it's really hard sometimes to start with what do I want, and while I wouldn't say to linger too long on what you don't want, because if your thoughts are around that for too long, then that's kind of what you start attracting to yourself. But it can be a starting point. You know, I don't know what I want. Well, okay, so what is really not working for you, and what do you really do not want to attract anymore? Okay, here's a list. Okay, then turn it around, and then start focusing on that want instead. So I think that would be first step. Over to you, Fifi.
Yeah, you're right. And actually, that is a decision-making strategy that a few of my clients actually, and one of particular friends, use. They do that. They look at what they don't want, and then they know what they do want. So when I'm trying to get these two particular clients to think about anything that they do want, I go, well, how do you like it to be? I kind of go, well, here we go. So how do you want it not to be? And then, so some people do make it, they don't realize it often, and it's just a strategy. There's nothing wrong or right about it. It's just a strategy. So you're right. So what do you really want? And I think as always in my life, or there could be a belief going on here, I've learned through situations that have highlighted what hasn't been okay. Although I am now more and more noticing when things are going okay, and you know, being grateful, but also kind of just underneath what is happening. So, I mean, sadly, I realised a very long-term relationship, and I talk about it in our book, wasn't okay. And for me, the real indicator was how I walked away. I walked away completely exhausted from most of our encounters, very tired, uncomfortable. I often would have ended up saying things that I kind of wouldn't have chosen to say normally, and that's my responsibility. And actually it led into kind of me getting quite anxious, is a Western term in a way, about seeing this person and being with this person, and it was a real lesson learning. So when I went to the Daring Way weekend, it was braving that I mentioned last time that really helped me understand what was going on, because I couldn't quite put my finger on it. you know, it was very nebulous. I realised I took responsibility that I didn't put boundaries down enough. That was definitely, so for me, boundaries are so important, and that's been the gift. I mean, I'm not always getting how I put them down right, you know, and we've talked about this, you and me. Sometimes because I'm a bit like, I've got to do something, I get a bit maybe over assertive, verging on aggressive maybe. Don't always say it right, you know. But you know, this is learning. It takes time to practice, and then if you've got a friendship, a relationship that gives you the feedback about that, then, and you don't personalize it, then you can learn and grow. So the key one for me is the vault in braving, is people sharing information. And occasionally I do it, and I really realize when I do it afterwards, sometimes when I'm in the middle of it, because I sometimes do it without thinking, share what someone might have shared with me as a comparison if someone else is talking about that. But I've always been very careful around that, and I realized in this relationship that was happening quite a lot. So for me, I suppose when I started looking, and we call it the dream team in our book, don't we? When I started to look to have relationships around me that were more serving, mutually serving. I think it was energy that I connected with first. So how was I physically as I walked away? Just noticing whether people did spend time talking about others or seeing the world from a very cup half empty position. And that's okay. But actually, I don't really, those people in my life, there's always a realism around that the world can be shitty and things do happen. But actually, for me, it's people who are, I suppose, optimistic, realistic. I think there's the word called pragmatic. That's a realistic optimist. And gradually, you know, and I think I wrote in the book, you know, that through this, I've got two people particularly locally who I really connect with and I can hang out with, and I come away and have amazing energy. And obviously I have you, who I get to physically be with 3 times a year. Boo. Boo. But actually, it was your last point about how do you then, because I'm in a longer term romantic relationship, and moving that to a relationship that serves me and I serve well has been actually quite a journey. And I hadn't realised that until you asked it, the last one. So learning again, I think for me, it's been about boundaries. And actually, this sounds a bit twee, but I do think there's some essence of self-care and self-compassion that plays a role in that. Because if I don't start looking after myself and having self-compassion and self-love, then I can end up resentful because I'm doing and giving for not the right reasons, you know. Yeah,
definitely. Okay, so you put an intention out that you had started figuring out, particularly around one long-term relationship that wasn't working out, and you figured out, okay, so these are the kind of things that I don't want anymore in any new relationships. And then you started thinking about, okay, so you started putting it out there.
Yeah,
you had an intention.
Yeah,
and I know
definitely.
you do vision boards, and I think I remember that you put that on your vision board as well.
I did. And I remember sitting here Christmas Day 2015, and I remember thinking, right, this time next year I'm going to have more meaningful, better connected relationships around me locally, you know. And I did. So you're right, I put the intention out. But then I also then did go, there was a woman that I'd met when I was running a retreat, and really liked her, connected in, so kind of nudged back in contact with her. And then I went to a local book club, a spiritual book club, where I met my two other connections. One is just nurturing now into a lovely relationship. So I didn't just sit and wait, you know, I did do some action. Yeah.
But once you know, it's almost like you take your old glasses off.
Yes.
And you put new glasses on.
Yes.
Then you see new things
Yes.
in those glasses, and you start noticing, and also being open to it. Start being open to it, and being brave enough to realize. I mean, this takes so much courage. I mean, to let go of a relationship, whether it is a friendship or a love relationship, you know, to kind of go, it's not working, you know, and to let it go. That takes courage. And to kind of go, you know what, I'm going to be putting down fluid boundaries, you know, and I'm going to express my wants, and to trust that it will happen. You know, that, you know, it's not like it's, oh well, you just go and do this and la da, you know. So just, you know, accepting and realizing that it is a process sometimes, not always, but sometimes it is.
No, you've summed it up beautifully. That's exactly it. And also bear in mind, you know, that we are often the average of the 5 people around us. So they say that if you look at financially, but I look at it more around the energy of the people I have around me, you know, and if I'm surrounded by people who have that kind of, it still doesn't mean they still go through ups and downs in life, but it's that resilience, that light energy is still in there. You know, you sit with them in the dark hole, and you just with empathy sit beside them and go, you know what, sweetie, this is shit. This is shit. You don't do we've learned through our grief recovery program, you don't do the, you know, sort of like inane lines, but actually, you know, they do rise or move or just experience, and you know, it doesn't make them bitter, it doesn't make them look at the world with glasses on that is around the world being a crappy place with crappy people. It kind of there's an inner holding of love that they have for the world and people that I suppose shines. So therefore, you know, if I could have the chance of surrounding myself with 5 people like that, then that's what I'm going to do. You know,
it's a no-brainer, really.
Yeah.
But it's it can be sometimes a difficult step to take.
Definitely.
And also, it's something that I just learned in the last week. Well, we didn't learn, but I like the way it was said. It was like, you know, where I started this episode is like stating your wants and what you want. And by stating what you want, it doesn't always mean that you get exactly that, but at least you have shown up authentically as you and said, this is important to me. You know, and then the other person can respond. And then there's that kind of honesty and openness to it.
Yeah, definitely. Because sometimes, you know, we're just human. A want can be an expectation just clothed lightly in a want. And if you have an honest conversation with someone and, you know, they actually go, do you know what, I can't live to that. You know, I genuinely, you know, I can try, but is that me showing up authentically if I'm that? And then you start to think, oh, hang on a minute, I'm not sure that is a want or is an expectation. And that's worth, so it's where you can have those conscious discussions. But yes, I mean, you know, I also think there is something around bizarrely transaction analysis that goes on in here as well. You know, because I think if you can as much as possible stay in adult state when you're communicating. So, you know, for example, putting down boundaries, going, well, what I would really like is if you know, and I've been there, done that on the t-shirt, you know, that's making requests from child. If I actually talk about boundaries and have conscious conversations in adult state, not in victim, not in parent, reproachful parent, not in, you know, scared child, that is the magic as well. And I thought that I really, because that's all of the jigsaw coming together for me. It's how you communicate, you know, how you say it, and what state. So I would call resourceful state, you know, but also it's adult state. And then watching, you know, the response of the person can then trigger off either your reproachful parent or your kind of, you know, pissed off child, and so it's just knowing those, they're quite helpful. Because if you stay in resourceful state, my mum and I had a very challenging time in our relationship, and that became a relationship that both served us both well. When she passed, we were really great companions, and we had to work through some serious stuff together. And the way we did it was I just kept staying in adult state. It was not easy because we got into a habit of being, and I got into a pattern of behaving around her. And she came with me. She could have chosen not to. I didn't say to her, Mum, I'm now in adult state, but it was how I was.
Yeah.
And then the other person, but this is part of what they call co-action. The more you can't change anybody else, but you can just manage yourself. And by managing yourself, people often do respond bizarrely if I think about it. So quite a few little nuggets in there, isn't there?
There we are. Just for our viewers, we do plan our series subjects about 3 to 4 months ahead of time, and we will be talking about transactional analysis more. Those of you who are not very familiar with it, you can of course Google it. There's lots of stuff on it outline, but we will be talking about that in a few months' time.
We will indeed,
definitely. We're out of time again. We're out of time. So, what question for this time around?
Well, I think you kind of said it, didn't you? So it's knowing what you want. So what is it you want from a relationship that will serve you? Because that's what we asked last time, to notice how it's serving you, but you also can serve. So how do you know what you want? Which might mean you have to go to what you don't want and then turn it into, what you do want. And think about it, a little bit of visioning around. So how do you see yourself in it? What physical sensations that might help as well with you visioning about what you want, which is all in our book, Tiina. Finding a song that makes your heart sing. In our book, which we'll be talking about. Well, we do talk about finding the song that makes your heart sing.com. Makesyourheartsing.com.
Makesyourheartsing.com. Ian.
Makesyourheartsing.com. Go and check it out.
Brilliant. Okay, well, do you want to do the blurb at the end?
Yes. So if you would like to contribute, we would love to hear about any learnings you've had, any little nuggets you've got around relationships that serve you. And if you want to subscribe, please do. And then you'll get notified of every Friday when Illuminations appears.
Brilliant. It's been a pleasure as always, Fifi, and I will see you next time.
See you next time, Tiina. Thank you.
Bye.